I need a gun. For some reason, I decided I needed a gun and knew just where to find one. It was an easy burglary, and I ran out with a .38 revolver, a Saturday night special, a jar filled with change, and a bottle of pills. No bullets came with this find, and I would have to get some. First, I needed another beer and headed toward the VFW on East Main Street in Bridgeport. Patsy, in his 50s, and a captain in the reserves, ran the VFW. Patsy and I went way back, and he was known to buy stolen goods, and especially bottles of Librium from me for his fellow drunks in case they needed a home detox. Drum roll for the VFW. Patsy was behind the bar as I walked, stumbled in, and said, "Hey, Mike, what do you have?" I mumbled, "Beer," and he gave me one on the house. His nephew, Bobby, was shooting pool with Dave Larson, a member of the Grateful Dead Motorcycle Club. Dave caught himself a 2 to 5 in the state prison for a shooting of the member of the Huns, and I believed that he was still on probation or parole. His current involvement with the criminal justice system would play a role in what happened later. I went over to join Dave and Bobby. I laid 2 quarters on the table. Even drunk, I played well and didn't have to buy any more beer. Eventually, the last call came and the bar closed. Walking alone down East Main Street, it hit me. I had no place to go, and furthermore, I was a wanted man. What the hell do I do now? I knew I had to steal some money, and fast. What better place to rob but the VFW? Giving it about 30 minutes, I approached the bar from Kingsbury Road, cutting through the woods to do so. Not a soul was on the street at that hour, and I knew the burglary would be easy. I would have to be careful, however, because my friend Tommy and his family lived in the same building. Tommy lived on the 1st floor, and Patsy's lounge was on the 2nd. The Fiorito clan is as close to connected as you could get. All kinds of bent noses hung around the VFW and Fiorito's gas station. The repair shop next door was owned by another Fiorito, Tony. Tony had recently done 6 months in the county jail for involvement with a truckload of stolen perfume. These were not people I wanted to mess with, but the booze-soaked portion of my brain and good decision-making was on hold. I decided to go for it, and go quickly. A fire escape made getting to the 2nd floor easy, and it was a snap to force one of the windows. Although it was dark and I couldn't risk a light, I managed to get behind the bar. Of course the cash register was empty, but I found their stash, a cigar box crammed with damp folding money. That was enough for me, and I didn't look further. Stuffing the money into my pocket, I grabbed a few beers from the cooler and left. I again headed down East Main Street toward downtown. The funeral home. Crazy ideas came in my head as I was walking. After walking a mile or so, I changed direction and walked on Noble Avenue, going south. Soon I reached the Kraken Funeral Home, where my friend Kenny used to clean up behind the embalmer a few years back. Still remembering his lurid tales and the time he locked me in a coffin, I decided to break into Kraken's. As wrong as it is, I had thoughts of finding some stiff grandmother lying in her box with a fiery diamond ring, waiting for eternity. I knew I had the courage to snatch it off Granny's finger because I was drunk. Hey, maybe I could find an empty box and grab a snooze, you know? I walked around the entire downstairs of the funeral home, finding 0 stiffs. Damn. I also checked the embalming room, but was afraid of what I would find. I knew that jewelry would be added later, but I looked everywhere. Nothing. Before I left the Kraken's, I found their checkbook and ripped out a few. There was no easy way to cash a check safely, but I added the stolen checks to my wad of dump. Before I left Kraken's, I found their checkbook and ripped out a few. There was no way to cash a check safely, but I added the stolen checks to my wad of damp cash. Who knew what would happen? I went downtown and was now able to rent a room from one of the cheap hotels. I counted my wet money and was happy that I was now ahead by $650. I noticed that I had a bottle of Dalmane, benzodiazepine sleeping pill, in my pocket from when I stole the gun. I ripped the label off the bottle because that's a good way to get caught in a burglary. Eventually I passed out. Blessed silence. Let's see what tomorrow will bring. Actually, it only brought haze, so I took a bunch of the Dalmane and passed out again. I wanted to go to Father Panic to buy heroin and coke, but I barely made it past the package store on the corner. Next thing I knew, it was late at night and I went out again. Target practice at the mall. I was unconscious for a long time, but came to with a bad hangover. Feeling totally beat and scared Liz, I downed the rest of the Valium and the Dalmane. I don't do the wanted man bit so well, and my mind never stopped churning out disastrous scenarios. Remembering my stolen gun, I decided to find some ammo for it. I had nothing planned at that point and was running solely on automatic pilot. Disaster was coming for sure, and I had fleeting memories of what an old-timer said in Eden House. If I ever return to a life of crime, and I think I will make sure to have a loaded gun on me. I'll never let those bastards take me alive and send me back to prison. Sound planning. Using the trusty phone book, I found a gun store on Barnum Avenue and called a taxi. Because I had no ID on me and didn't plan to go to Mom's to get it, I asked the cabbie if he would buy me a box of 38 bullets for an extra $20. The guy gladly obliged, and I had him drop me near Lafayette Mall so I could test fire my weapon. Shakily, I loaded 5 rounds into the 38 and noted that the entire ground floor of the parking lot was empty. This was perfect for my needs, and I walked to the extreme end of the parking lot. Looking around carefully and noticing that the coast was clear and no cars were in that direction I planned to shoot, I squeezed off a round. The resulting explosion was deafening. My ears were ringing like church bells. As I replaced the spent shell, I noticed that this gun had no safety. I didn't care too much. I should have. The wild, wild west of Bridgeport, Connecticut. Craving more drugs and still clutching a stolen sum of money, I reached out to Yellow Cab, instructing them to take me to Father Panic Village and back. "Oh, a mission," the cab driver knowingly remarked. "We'll get you there in 10 minutes. I refrained from commenting, fully aware that this driver understood my intentions all too well. This time, venturing into the heart of the ghetto to obtain drugs had no fear for me. Emboldened by the presence of my concealed weapon, I secretly hoped someone would provoke me. Carelessly, I tucked the gun into the front of my pants, narrowly avoiding a disastrous mishap that could have cost me dearly. The combination of alcohol, lingering effects of Valium, and the recently ingested Dalmane had me in an altered state. My thoughts briefly turned to the tactical police patrols that frequented the village, but their presence failed to evoke any fear in me. My drug-addled mind, saturated with alcohol, shielded me from any sensible apprehensions. Rational individuals would be wary of entering any ghetto to procure drugs, but such sensibility eluded me on that particular day. Instructing the cabbie to park at the outskirts of the village, I nonchalantly strolled down Martin Luther King Boulevard. My sights set on locating the dealers. I noticed an old acquaintance, Fat Floyd, lingering outside the mini-market, and without hesitation, I approached him to inquire about the current source of drugs. "There may be a few dudes with something good today. How come you didn't come over to my crib, Mike? I could run out real fast and even get you a set from the old lady. Hey, let's go back there, huh?" "No, Floyd, I gotta cop and go." After he hooked me up with his buddy Tyrone, I copped a bundle of dope and a loose 50 of coke. Returning to Floyd, I said, "Floyd, I need some works. Go see the old lady for me. Here's $5 for 2 sets and make sure they are new. I will give you a 20 when you come back, okay? Sure you don't want to come over to my crib? How much you buying?" "That's a question you never answer," I muttered under my breath, swiftly snatching the syringes and instructing the driver to leave me at the Golden Hill Hotel. Inside the hotel room, my search for a suitable vein proved challenging, despite the fresh syringes. Eventually, I managed to find a vein, the needle filling with a mix of blood and the potent concoction known as a speedball, a combination of heroin and cocaine. Carefully, I injected half the mixture into my arm, employing my self-devised method to avoid overdosing. A scientific approach, wouldn't you think? Within minutes, I administered the remaining portion of the speedball and dialed Fat Billy's number. "He's in the bathroom," someone informed me. "I'll call back," I said softly. With a deceptive plan in mind, I decided to make a trial call to a hospital's pharmacy. Fortunately, the pharmacist on duty that name was named Matt. Good, I thought to myself. Seizing the opportunity, I inquired about a prescription known as Anexia, which supposedly had been prescribed by my mother. "Is it Anexia or Anexia D? It's crucial to know." Attempting to sow the seeds of deception, I said, "I can't quite make out the details. I'm uncertain. Could I bring it in for you to examine?" I was fully aware of the deceitful path I was on. Meanwhile, I phoned Fat Billy again, this time finding him available. Fat Billy resided with his parents, leeching off their goodwill, as he never bothered to work a day in his life. Strung out like the rest of us, he couldn't believe his luck upon hearing my audacious request. My desperation had clouded my judgment, and I had made up my mind to carry out a hospital robbery at gunpoint. However, I needed an escape vehicle. Knowing that Fat Billy had no car, he agreed to reach out to Dave, another associate. As desperation fueled my decision-making, I could sense that I was rapidly descending into hell. "Screw it, call Dave. We will split equally, each getting 1/3. This was a mistake too. I should have planned to keep half for myself, as I was the man going in and the heavy, as the cops would call me later. They would take whatever I gave them. Now I needed a suitcase for the booty and had no cash left with which to buy one. It was time to get creative.